The last harbor. The universe was dying, and everyone knew it. Across the vast expanse of space, stars were winking out one by one, their nuclear fires exhausted after billions of years of faithful service. What had once been a galaxy teeming with light and life was slowly becoming a dark, cold cemetery of dead worlds and silent space. The great spiral arms that had once blazed with the birth of new stars now grew dimmer with each passing millennium. Yet in one small corner of what humans had once called the Alpha Centauri system, 3 stars continued to burn with impossible brilliance. They pulsed with steady, rhythmic energy that defied every law of stellar physics known to the galaxy's greatest minds. These weren't the desperate, violent flares of dying giants, nor were they the fading embers of white dwarfs slowly cooling into darkness. These were stars in their prime, burning as if they had just been born yesterday. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, humanity's greatest orbital city, watching the steady dance of the 3 suns through the reinforced viewport. Her weathered hands traced patterns on the metal railing as she contemplated the impossible sight before her. At 45, she had spent more than half her life managing humanity's greatest secret, and the weight of it never got easier to bear. "Commander," a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Dr. Marcus Chen approaching, his usually immaculate lab coat wrinkled from another sleepless night in the research bays. Dark circles under his eyes spoke of countless hours spent perfecting humanity's most crucial technology. "The Zephyrian fleet has just crossed the outer sensor perimeter. They'll be here within the hour." Elena nodded grimly. The Zephyrians would be the first of many. Word had spread across the galaxy about humanity's impossible sanctuary, carried by desperate refugees and wandering explorers who had witnessed the 3 undying stars of Alpha Centauri. As more and more civilizations faced the extinction of their home systems, they would come seeking answers, seeking hope, seeking the impossible dream of survival in a universe that seemed determined to end. "How many ships?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer would break her heart. 17 vessels, but most are barely holding together. Our long-range scans indicate they're carrying approximately 2 million souls, Commander. They're the survivors from the Zephyr Prime system." Marcus paused, consulting his tablet. "Their star went supernova 3 months ago. These are the ones who managed to escape." Elena closed her eyes briefly. Zephyr Prime had been home to nearly 8 billion Zephyrians, a peaceful species known throughout the galaxy for their poetry and mathematical achievements. Now only 2 million remained, fleeing across the void in ships that were never designed for such desperate journeys. "Prepare the outer stations for refugee processing," she ordered, "and send word to the Council. They need to know we're about to have our first major test of the harbor protocols." The harbor protocols. Humanity's carefully crafted plan for exactly this scenario. They had known this day would come eventually, when the dying universe would drive the surviving species to their doorstep like moths drawn to the last flickering candle in an endless night. The question was whether humanity was ready to reveal the truth behind their miraculous survival. 2 hours later, Elena found herself in the main conference chamber of Haven Station, surrounded by humanity's greatest minds and leaders. The room was a masterpiece of both function and beauty, with walls that could display real-time images from across the 3-star system. Currently, they showed the approaching Zephyrian fleet, their ships limping through space like wounded animals seeking shelter. "We always knew this moment would come," said President Sarah Martinez via holographic link from Earth's New Geneva. "The question is how much we're willing to reveal to ensure their survival and ours." Dr. Chen stood before the assembled group, his hand steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to discuss. "The stellar resonance array has been operating flawlessly for 12 years now. We've successfully maintained the fusion cycles of all 3 stars in this system, keeping them burning at optimal efficiency while their natural fuel reserves should have been exhausted decades ago. The technology was humanity's crowning achievement, born from centuries of research into stellar physics and quantum mechanics. Where other species had focused on faster ships or more powerful weapons, Humanity had looked to the stars themselves. They had learned to read the quantum signatures of nuclear fusion, to understand the delicate dance of matter and energy that kept a star burning. And more importantly, they had learned to influence that dance. The Zephyrians will want to know how we've done this, continued Dr. Chen. Their scientists aren't fools. They'll detect the artificial manipulation of our stellar cores within days of arriving in system. Elena turned to face the holographic image of President Martinez. What are your orders, Madam President? The president was quiet for a long moment, her image flickering slightly due to the vast distance between Earth and Alpha Centauri. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of a decision that would shape the future of the galaxy. We tell them the truth, she said simply. All of it. Humanity didn't survive this long by hiding from reality, and we won't start now. If we're going to be the harbor for the galaxy's refugees, they deserve to know what that means. The decision sent ripples of both relief and anxiety through the chamber. They would reveal the stellar resonance array, humanity's method of artificially sustaining stellar fusion through quantum manipulation. They would explain how human scientists had spent 3 centuries perfecting the technology, how they had quietly tested it on their own sun before expanding to the Alpha Centauri system. And they would make it clear that this technology came with a price. Ambassador Cathvar of the Zephyrian fleet arrived at Haven Station 6 hours later, her elegant form moving gracefully despite the obvious exhaustion that marked her features. The Zephyrians were a tall, slender species with skin that shimmered with natural bioluminescent patterns. In their prime, those patterns had danced with vibrant colors reflecting their emotions and thoughts. Now, Cathvar's skin showed only the dull gray of grief and desperation. Commander Vasquez, she said in heavily accented but fluent human standard, my people are grateful beyond words for your willingness to receive us. We have traveled far and lost much to reach this sanctuary. Elena gestured for the ambassador to sit at the conference table, noting how the alien's luminescent patterns flickered weakly with hope. Ambassador, you and your people are welcome here, but there are things you need to understand about our situation, about what makes our survival possible. Over the next 4 hours, Elena and Dr. Chen explained everything. They showed Cathvar the massive stellar resonance array stations positioned throughout the system, each one a cathedral of human engineering designed to monitor and manipulate the quantum processes within the 3 stars. They explained how the technology worked, feeding controlled bursts of exotic matter into the stellar cores to sustain fusion reactions that should have ended long ago. Your people have achieved something our greatest scientists believed impossible, Cathvar said, her skin patterns finally showing flickers of amazement mixed with the ever-present grief. You have learned to feed the stars themselves. We have, Elena confirmed, but this technology requires constant maintenance, constant vigilance, and most importantly, constant cooperation. The moment we stop working together, the moment we allow conflict or competition to interfere with our operations, the stars will begin to die. And when they die, everything dies with them. The implications were clear. Humanity wasn't offering charity or simple refuge. They were offering partnership in the most crucial endeavor in galactic history, the preservation of the last light in an increasingly dark universe. But that partnership would require absolute commitment from every species that chose to make the Alpha Centauri system their home. Cathvar was quiet for a long time, her patterns shifting through complex configurations that Elena recognized as deep thought in Zephyrian culture. Finally, she spoke. My people have always believed that the universe speaks to those who know how to listen. For 3 months, we have heard only silence as our world burned and our star died. But here, in this place, we hear something different. We hear hope. Elena smiled, the first genuine smile she had managed in weeks. Then welcome home, Ambassador. Let's get your people settled, and then we'll begin teaching you how to help us keep the stars burning. As the Zephyrian ships began docking at humanity's outer stations, Elena allowed herself a moment of cautious optimism. The first test of humanity's grand plan had succeeded. But she knew this was only the beginning. As word spread about the sanctuary at Alpha Centauri, more species would come. Some would be desperate refugees like the Zephyrians. Others might be conquerors, seeking to claim humanity's technology for themselves. The real test would come when humanity had to prove that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that hope was more powerful than desperation. In a universe that seemed determined to end in darkness, they would have to show that even the smallest light could push back the endless night. The growing alliance. 3 months after the arrival of the Zephyrians, the Alpha Centauri system had transformed from humanity's secret sanctuary into the most diverse collection of species the galaxy had ever seen. The Zephyrians had adapted quickly to their new home, their natural mathematical abilities making them excellent partners in maintaining the stellar resonance array. But they were no longer alone in seeking refuge. The Corvin mining fleets had arrived first, their massive industrial ships carrying the survivors of 17 dead worlds. Behind them came the ethereal mines, a species of pure energy beings whose home nebula had collapsed into nothingness. The graceful Sylvan collective followed, their bioships carrying the last seeds of 1,000 forest worlds. Each new arrival brought desperate hope and mounting challenges for humanity's ambitious harbor. Commander Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of New Unity Station, the massive orbital city that had been constructed in just 2 months to accommodate the growing refugee population. The station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, with sections designed specifically for each species' needs. Zephyrian crystal gardens glowed with soft bioluminescence next to Corvin industrial workshops, while ethereal containment chambers hummed with controlled energy beside Sylvan growing bays filled with impossible alien plants. "Commander, we need to discuss the Drachmary situation," said Dr. Marcus Chen, falling into step beside her. His exhaustion was even more evident now, the weight of managing dozens of different stellar engineering projects taking its toll on humanity's finest physicist. Elena's jaw tightened at the mention of the Drachmary. Unlike the other refugee species, the Drachmary had arrived not as desperate survivors, but as a military expedition. Their fleet of sleek warships had demanded entry to the system, claiming territorial rights based on their empire's ancient star charts. They had only agreed to dock after Elena made it clear that any aggressive action would result in their immediate expulsion from the sanctuary. "What are they doing now?" Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "They're trying to access restricted areas of the array control systems. My security teams have caught Drachmary operatives attempting to infiltrate 3 different monitoring stations in the past week. They're not just studying our technology, Commander. They're trying to steal it." Elena stopped walking and turned to face Dr. Chen fully. Around them, the diverse inhabitants of New Unity Station continued their daily routines, a living testament to what was possible when species chose cooperation over conflict. But the Drachmary threatened to shatter that fragile harmony. Have they made any overt moves against the other species? Not yet, but the Zephyrians are getting nervous. Ambassador Kethvar says her people are picking up increased military communications from the Drachmary fleet, and the Corvin mining captains are talking about arming their ships for defense. Elena felt a familiar weight settle on her shoulders. This was exactly the scenario humanity's planners had feared most. The moment weapons appeared in the Alpha Centauri system, the delicate balance that kept the stars burning would be threatened. The stellar resonance array required absolute precision, and military conflicts created exactly the kind of electromagnetic interference that could disrupt the quantum processes keeping their suns alive. "Call an emergency session of the Harbor Council," Elena ordered, "and make sure every species representative understands what's at stake." The Harbor Council had been established just 6 weeks earlier as a governing body for the growing refugee population. It was humanity's attempt to create truly democratic leadership for their sanctuary, with each species granted voting rights proportional to their contribution to the system's maintenance and defense. It was an ambitious experiment in galactic democracy, and it was about to face its first major crisis. 2 hours later, Elena stood before the assembled representatives in the council chamber aboard Haven Station. The room had been designed to accommodate the various physical and environmental needs of all the refugee species. Zephyrian delegates sat in chairs that enhanced their bioluminescent communication, while ethereal representatives occupied specialized energy containment fields. The Corvin delegation filled reinforced seating designed for their massive frames, and the Sylvan collective participated through a complex network of living vines that had grown throughout the chamber. At the far end of the room, the three Drakmari representatives sat apart from the others. Their reptilian features remained impassive, but Elena could see the calculation in their golden eyes as they studied the other delegates. "Friends," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems, "we face our first major test as an alliance. The sanctuary we've built together is threatened not by the dying universe outside, but by conflict from within." She activated the chamber's holographic display, showing detailed scans of Drakmari infiltration attempts throughout the system. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The Drakmari delegation has been systematically attempting to steal the technology that keeps us all alive, Elena continued. This cannot be tolerated, not because we wish to hoard our knowledge, but because their actions threaten the stability of the entire system. General Vexthor, the senior Drakmari representative, rose to his feet with fluid grace. His scaled skin gleamed under the chamber's lights as he spoke in the clipped, precise tones typical of his species. Humans speak of cooperation, yet they hoard the most important knowledge in the galaxy. The Drakmari Empire has the right to understand and possess any technology that affects our survival. We will not be kept as beggars at your table when we could be equals. A ripple of disturbed sounds went through the chamber. Ambassador Kethvar's skin patterns flashed with indignation, while the Corvin delegates grumbled in their deep, resonant voices. Only the ethereal minds remained silent, their energy forms pulsing with what Elena had learned to recognize as deep thought. "General Vexthor," said Kethvar, rising to address the Drakmari directly, "your people arrived here with warships while the rest of us came as refugees. You demand equality while threatening the very harmony that keeps the stars burning. How can you speak of rights when you endanger the survival of millions?" The Drakmari general's golden eyes narrowed as he turned to face the Zephyrian ambassador. "The Drakmari Empire does not beg for scraps of knowledge. We take what we need to ensure our people's survival. If other species are too weak to do the same, that is not our concern." The chamber erupted in angry voices as delegates from multiple species began speaking at once. Elena could see the fragile alliance she had worked so hard to build beginning to fracture before her eyes. This was exactly what humanity's planners had feared, the moment when survival instincts would override cooperative ideals. But before Elena could call for order, an unexpected voice cut through the chaos. It was Lumina, the primary representative of the ethereal minds, her energy form brightening as she spoke. "The Drakmari speak of strength, but they misunderstand what true strength means in this dying universe." Her voice carried an otherworldly quality that immediately commanded attention. "We ethereal minds have existed for millions of years. We have seen empires rise and fall, watched entire galaxies bloom and fade. And we have learned that in the face of universal entropy, only cooperation creates lasting strength." General Vexthor turned his attention to the ethereal representative, his expression skeptical. "Pretty words from beings made of light and energy. But words will not keep our people fed or protected when the universe grows cold and dark." "No," Lumina agreed, her form pulsing with calm certainty, "but the technology the humans offer will. And that technology only works through absolute cooperation. The moment any of us chooses conquest over partnership, the quantum resonance systems will destabilize. The stars will begin to die, and we will all face extinction together." Elena seized the moment to regain control of the discussion. "Lumina is exactly right. The stellar resonance array isn't just technology. It's a living system that requires constant harmony to function. Every species here contributes something essential to that harmony. The Zephyrians provide mathematical precision. The Corvins supply raw materials and industrial capacity. The Sylvans offer biological systems that help regulate energy flow, and the ethereal minds contribute quantum processing power we couldn't achieve otherwise. She turned to face General Vexthor directly. The Drakmari Empire is welcome to join this alliance as equals, contributing your advanced military knowledge to help defend our sanctuary from external threats. But the moment you choose theft over partnership, you threaten not just human interests but the survival of every soul in this system. The Drakmari general was quiet for several minutes, his golden eyes moving from delegate to delegate as he clearly calculated his options. Finally, he spoke in a voice that carried both pride and pragmatic acceptance. The Drakmari Empire values strength above all else. For millennia, we have believed that strength came from conquest and domination. He paused, his gaze settling on the holographic display, showing the 3 burning stars. But perhaps true strength in this dying universe comes from the ability to make even the stars themselves bend to our collective will. Elena felt a surge of hope. Does this mean the Drakmari Empire is willing to join our alliance as equal partners? It means, General Vexthor said carefully, that we are willing to contribute our military capabilities to the defense of this sanctuary, in exchange for full access to the knowledge and technology that sustains it. But understand this, Commander Vasquez, we will not be junior partners in any alliance. If we are to trust our survival to this cooperation, then Drakmari voices must be heard equally in all decisions. Ambassador Kethvar's skin patterns flickered with cautious optimism. The Zephyrians welcome the Drakmari as true partners, provided all species commit equally to the principles that make our survival possible. One by one, the other delegates voiced their agreement. The Corvin mining captains pledged their industrial might to expanding the sanctuary's infrastructure. The Sylvan Collective offered to grow additional biological systems to support larger populations. The ethereal minds promised to enhance the quantum processing systems that kept the array functioning at peak efficiency. As Elena watched the former enemies and strangers transform into reluctant allies, she felt a familiar mixture of hope and trepidation. They had passed their first major test, but she knew greater challenges lay ahead. Word of their success would spread throughout the galaxy, bringing both desperate refugees and potentially hostile forces who might see the undying stars as prizes to be conquered rather than sanctuaries to be preserved. But for now, in this moment, she allowed herself to believe that cooperation truly could triumph over the entropy that threatened to consume everything. As the Harbor Council session concluded with formal agreements and renewed commitments to their shared survival, Belina looked out through the chamber's massive viewport at the 3 stars that continued to burn with impossible brightness. They were no longer just humanity's secret. They had become the galaxy's hope, sustained not by any single species' knowledge, but by the combined determination of everyone who had chosen cooperation over conquest. And as more ships appeared at the edge of the system, carrying new refugees from dying worlds, Elena knew their greatest adventures were still ahead. The universe might be dying, but in the Alpha Centauri system, something new was being born. A civilization built on the radical idea that survival was stronger than fear, that hope was more powerful than desperation, and that even in the darkest times, the light of cooperation could keep the stars themselves burning bright.